This bike has a single pivot swing arm or rear frame. And the thing is, a lot of these modern mountain bikes have dual pivot rear frames because I guess the way the wheel moves back is a little bit more natural. And this one, in a way, it's more fortunate because they only have bearings here. Normally, this doesn't go back too often, but I wanted to show you how to do it because often people think that you have to take in your bike for maintenance to a shop and it's going to cost a few $100s to do. But even on these bikes, I'm going to show you today that it's fairly easy to do and anybody can do it. Just remove that bolt. Now sometimes it's seized because it's not seized, but they put Loctite, so you have to break it in order to remove it. And break it, I mean you just have to put enough force to break the Loctite in there. I do have my own tools here. This is a bike kit that I bought from Spin Doctor. You know, unfortunately for this one, to get to the pivot bolt, which is right there, you could get it without the use of removing the crank, but I usually remove the crank. Remove the wheel first. You just remove the skewer, loosen it up. I also like to clean all of this stuff out. You can see like how much the subframe moves. That's not normal. Pull the chain off to the side. This is going to make it much easier to work on. We are going to be using this to remove the cap. Here we go. Here's the dust cap. You can see there's plenty of grease in there. So this is what's called a crank puller. It's different from crank to crank, but generally what I read is that there's Shimano and then there's SRAM. This is I guess a Shimano, and it's got some threads here. And the way it works is that you just thread this into the crank as much as you can, and that's pretty much it. And now there's another bolt here, and then you just put this on, and what it does, it pushes inside and it pulls the crank out. There are cranks that are self-extracting, like the electric bike crank that I just bought, or I did for my friend. That was a fun build, and it's coming out. You see the crank is becoming loose, and there we go. And there's the crank. So the reason we removed it is to get to that bolt, and we're also going to try and replace these bolts. You don't have to, but if yours are in good shape, you can just leave them. But these are aluminum bolts, and you can put steel bolts that last a little bit longer. They weigh a little bit more, but put a 10 millimeter here, and then use the 5 millimeter and just undo this. When things come out here, make sure that you know where they come out. There's a couple of washers. So now we're pulling off this. Just gonna hold up the There we go. So there goes the bolt, and now we'll hold on to this because there's two other items that are going to be coming out, and that's this. This is the bolt that I removed from the shock. I just put it all together. So you have a nut, you have this spacer, you have another spacer, and then you have the bolt. But you also have a little washer here, so keep that in mind. So one of the things I prefer to use for doing maintenance for bikes are just a wrench and hex like this, because I have motorcycles, so I have a lot of these tools. So, and I already undid it, so I'm going to pull this out. So this is the pinch bolt that holds on to the swing arm. There we go. If these bolts are extremely tight, you might have to heat them up using a torch. So I'm going to get the other one. This is why I like the extension. You can kind of get it in here. Once it's loose, you just kind of back it up. These are the two pinch bolts. I find it interesting that these are two different sizes, but they are kind of stripped. So I want to see if I can replace them if I have the bolts. So these are the pinch bolts. We have the crank. So to get this axle out, you're going to have two keys. These are both 5 millimeter, I believe. So Yeah. And you put one here and then one on the other side, and then you loosen it up. So the first time I did this, this was extremely tight. And the way it came out, it was actually stuck to the mushroom bolt. So I'm going to show you how to get it out. So it's already loose. I'm just going to take my hex and just remove it from here. Let's get the other one on the other side. So that's the mushroom bolt. All right, so this is a little bit tricky. What I'm using is a screwdriver, and I'm going to put it inside here. So you don't want to put it in the threads because you don't want to damage the threads for the bolt. And then I'm just going to tap it and push the bolt out. So here's the axle. You kind of have to hold up the subframe and kind of just help push the rest out. So after that is done, it should slide out fairly well. And now you see the bolt is coming out. Just kind of, this is a little tricky with one hand, just kind of hold up the subframe and just kind of push it out. Okay. There we go. So that's the subframe. So there we go. I had to push it forward because one of the bearings just came out. This is what I removed from the bike. This is the axle. This is the bolt that goes on the end here. And this is the mushroom cap. And there's threads on here, and that's how it holds the... You have to heat it up. So if you have a torch, that's how you get it out. So heat it up, and then... and the first time I removed it, I actually kind of melted this because it's a very soft aluminum, so be very careful with that. This is something that I learned from just working in cars. If you heat up things that are stuck, the metal expands. Now, this gets very hot, so be very careful on removing it. But that goes to show you that this cap now is loose, and this bolt is also loose. But one of the things I want to try and do is replace this because it has been stripped. This is the other mushroom cap. This is the other bolt. That's the axle. And we're going to put all the other stuff away. And the last bit I'm going to show you is the reason to do this job. This is one of the bearings. There's two of them. If you just kind of hold it in the middle, it should be like very free flowing. And this one is kind of got these rough patches. It's a sealed system, so it's got grease inside. And you can see there's a rubber cap here, but on this side, there's no rubber cap because there's been water and dirt getting in here. So the way to fix this is just to replace it. To fix this, I just bought a bunch of bearings. These, I bought them on Amazon. They are, I believe, $10 or $8 for all of these. So it beats going to Santa Cruz and buying them. So we're going to put one of these on, and they are slightly different, but they have very good. And there is a specific size. I forgot what it is. I'll post it in the description below. Most bikes are going to be using this. So if you type in roller skate bearings on Amazon or skateboard bearings, you'll get this. This is the exact same thing that most bikes use. Also, I have here from Home Depot bolts. This is the M6 1.0 by 16 millimeter, and that works for... They're a little bit longer than the original, but it doesn't matter because they go inside the socket here. So that is perfect. I have these two bolts that are the pinch bolts. The only reason I'm doing this is because these bolts that come from Santa Cruz are the original. They're aluminum. They're good, they're lightweight, but they're stripped. And people tend to strip these out. So in a way, it's a good upgrade. While I was tightening the subframe, this, I couldn't tighten it anymore, and that was the reason. So clean all of that out with some brake cleaner, brake parts cleaner, and just clean all the parts that the surface of the bearings are going to be touching. Yeah, a lot of people online, I've seen that they use bearing presses to get in there, but because there's a pinch bolt on here on these particular Santa Cruzes, you don't really need it. What I like to do is take some compressed air and just kind of blow anything out of it. Clean, we're ready to put in the bearing. So from the back here, sometimes it could be a little tough to get in, but I found that you really don't need a lot of pressure to get in. It has to be an equal amount of pressure. This one first. So this one goes in much easier. There's the gap here is actually much different, so it is going in. So there we go. So I do like to put some grease in there, just a dab. You don't need much here at all, because the axle that we're going to be putting in after cleaning, it's going to have plenty of grease. The one thing that you should be putting on these threads is a little bit of Loctite. Loctite just keeps the threads in there so it won't loosen as you're riding. And this is the one I'm going to be using. So we have cleaned all of this. You can use the brake parts cleaner like I have here, spray it. So this is the axle, and one of the things I like to do is just put a little bit of grease here on the axle. I greased the axle, so I should be able to slide it in from one side to the other. It might be a little bit tough. If you have a soft mallet, you can use it to hit. Is on there. Just get it a little bit, because I think it might hit the axle. If that's the case, I'll just put some washers in here. Just tighten it up. Because it is steel, it's much better. There we go. Still good. Don't need to over tighten things. Our steel pinch bolts as well, and they go here. So this, hopefully, I won't need to do anything else. And hopefully, this is gonna work out. There's like these swivel type of, see, like on this one, it's a swivel. So this part is round, so you could actually kind of twist it a little bit. Pull this out, hit it. You don't have to over tighten this, because you also don't want to crack the aluminum. The other bolt on the other side. Usually happens, the bolts get stuck, so I just tap them like this. So the reason I wanted to go with steel intentionally instead of aluminum is that the aluminum strips. Sure, it's lightweight. Sure, it's much better for riding because it's so much more lightweight. And when you consider the whole package of bikes, people lighten bikes that way. But for me, I prefer reliability over lightweight. I'm going to slide the axle where the shock is. So right in here. There we go, it's going in. Thing is, you have to push down the shock to fully get it going. It's a 10 millimeter, and you're going to have to use a 5 millimeter on the other side. You could also put some Loctite in there, but this one is usually does not come out. Now let's see if the bike moves laterally. Nope, it's pretty stiff. There's still some flex, which is good. We're just going to take our crank, put it the opposite way, like that. Make sure that it's perfect. Just hit it a little bit like that. And now you take this dust cap, and that's going to pull the crank back where it needs to go. Well guys, that's how you change the bearings on an old 20-year-old Santa Cruz. Very easy to do. It's inexpensive. For $10 you can do it. The kit from Santa Cruz is like $50. So this is definitely worth doing. And now the bike does not move laterally. So one thing I'm finding is that all of these bikes require maintenance, and there are people that all they do is take it to bike shops. So if you're not comfortable with maintenance, don't do it. But working on bikes is really not a very difficult thing. So anybody can really learn how to do it. And I'm learning a lot just by riding mountain bikes, because one of the things I have an issue is money. So I can't really afford to take it to bike shops and have my bikes fixed. So all of this is I do it because I need to. Otherwise, I won't be able to ride. But hopefully this video was a good tutorial for you guys. And don't be too afraid of like working on your own bikes. I think it's kind of rewarding knowing that you can fix your own bike if something breaks. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Thank you for watching my film. I hope you like. Dziękuję.